Everybody, and welcome to a VanillaIP webinar. Thanks for taking the time out of your day to join us. I know that we are invited to a lot of webinars, so we do appreciate your time. My name's Ian Sinnott. I'm the Sales and Marketing Director of VanillaIP. And today I'm just going to cover a relatively simple but obviously poignant and quite exciting subject for us, which is a product called Call to Teams, which has been introduced into our portfolio. This is a webinar in a series of webinars, so if you're unfamiliar with our webinar series or you'd like to backtrack through some of the other subjects that have come up maybe in 2020 itself or since the world changed, if you go to the website and you go to the webinar page, you'll see that there's an opportunity to click a button that says past webinars on this purple character, and enjoy and indulge in a few other messages that we've put out. Hopefully you will become engaged with what we're trying to do, what our products are trying to do, and how we have assembled a proposition to take us through to being successful in what's a very changed environment. And I suppose that will be the starting point for every message that's going out from cloud communications companies at the moment. What has changed? Well, pretty much everything has changed, at least temporarily. But I think the most material change that we'll find as salespeople in the cloud communications marketplace is that the buyer has been changed. And instead of our salespeople going out there and sort of working from a dial tone, a voice-centric solution up and into the UC world, we're now talking about communication conversations that start with flexible working, remote working, home working, meeting tools, virtual meeting tools, and then working downwards towards the traditional products of the old PBX world and out into the customer experience world of voice, call center, omni-channel contact center, compliant recording, etc., etc. So this is a webinar about one of the products that now sits in the pivotal area of our portfolio rather than the peripheral area of the portfolio. And we think it's one that will help our partners to engage in conversation with customers in the knowledge that they can fulfill a broader number of requirements, but remain true to this principle that we have, that we're trying to tailor solutions to optimize the performance of the individual user. So as we look at the customer, we try and put ourselves in the mindset of the buyer. What are their main criteria now as they look to arm their company with the correct tools? And I think it's agreed at the moment that staff health and well-being is number one. Are people able to work from home? How do we facilitate that? Do we need people to come back into the office? How can they commute safely? All of those elements that go into the health and safety and well-being of the staff, including the distancing between people when they're in the office. Then, of course, we get back to the more traditional duo of the customer experience, so that's your customer's customer experience, and delivering the maximum productivity from individuals and departments. And so as we go through this, clearly when we're talking about a soft phone tool or a remote meeting tool like Microsoft Teams and our Call to Teams plugin, we're talking about flexible working, and that can play heavily into point number one, the staff health and well-being. But I think it's also fair to say that the productivity question comes into play here. But it may be that the customer experience is less to do with this Teams environment and more to do with the other tools that you might add to the portfolio. So how are we going to make profit as a reseller? Well, we're going to try and do that by providing the right tools to the right users and the right departments at the right time. So let's have a look at the world of Teams. And I don't know how many of you out there are actually active Teams players, but I've tried to break down what I consider to be the three core groups of users or staff within a business where Teams has been deployed. And the first group are really what I'll call the Teams natives. These guys will be working in there for meetings, for voice, for video, for screen share, all of this remote working stuff. But they will already be established in the running of projects, the running of different teams of people, tasks, document sharing, and chat. They'll be fully utilizing the combined solution that Teams brings through with SharePoint and all the other facilities. Now, sitting alongside them, quite possibly in the same organization, are those people for whom Teams has been the collaborative answer. And this may be because prior to COVID-19, some of the company was utilizing the Teams structure in this Teams native environment, and it became natural to just expand that capability or that utilization across to now home working others. But we may also find that on the back end of that, we have the non-Teams users. And these may be people who were mobile orientated. Clearly, the door phone is not necessarily going to be a Teams user, but some of the additional endpoints or extensions, whatever you want to call them, within an organization that don't fit in. So as we look at calls to Teams, it's important to remember that even with something as integrated as a Microsoft Teams add-in, we're not necessarily talking about a one-size-fits-all. And as VanillaIP resellers, we support you as an organization in using this segmentation to create your difference, to deliver a very bespoke solution, but to do it nimbly and well controlled through the UBOS portal. So in terms of the Teams integration that I'm going to talk about today, and really it's quite a simple overview for you, but we've got the calls to Teams product and the way that we can integrate, put a dial pad within Teams and allow it to become the active soft phone within the primary window that people use. And we'll just touch on the fact that this is a mobile product as well. So the fact that calls to Teams will help you operate out of the mobile device element of Teams as well. We'll talk about, it's worth noting that, again, these are 30-day wholesale products. So these are the true cloud elements that you can provide to customers, and they can adopt them and they can turn them away if they change their mind and move in a different direction. So it's a very low risk addition to the services that you might deliver. But if you do want to create specialist bundles, if you work in the Teams environment or in the Microsoft general product environment more, you may want to bundle products up. And again, using the UBOS portal, and if you're unfamiliar with it, do please reach out to us and we'll take you through the whole back office journey as well as this front of house portfolio. But you can create the bundles of services that people can consume to be a proper worker in the characteristics that you're aiming for. Whilst we're in talking about this, however, I will give you a bit of a roadmap insight into the UC1 Trio interaction with Teams. So this is Cisco WebEx being interacted or interacting with the Microsoft Teams environment. So it's a lovely way to actually give you as a reseller a chance to help your customer dance through the options from two of the big mega cloud players, and also to blend together the best in class for those users as we go through. We'll talk a little bit about the importance that I'll attach to that as we do it. So, but for the time being, let me just take you on this little short journey through the Teams products. And the first window that I want to show you, if you're familiar with Teams, you'll be familiar with this left-hand margin, or most of it. We can look at our calendars, we can look at our calls, we can look at the teams that we've created, etc. And what calls to Teams does is it allows you to impose this dial pad in here. And through this dial pad, I can dial numbers for external calls, and it will route the call itself from Microsoft Teams, who own this application, through a middleware called Calls to Teams, and that will be delivered as if it were a soft phone to be taken out by the BroadSoft switch at the heart of our service, and that's the connection of the outbound call. But because it's using a middleware route, i.e. Microsoft's applications are talking to this Call to Teams application before reaching the BroadSoft, it means that both the desktop dial pad, and also the dial pad that you get presented on your mobile phone, if you're using Teams on the mobile phone, will generate the same call process to the same calls to Teams extension. So you only have one extension or one device attributed to you in the central soft switch. What that means is that you can have a very low cost basic user license in the BroadWorks environment and be operating multiple devices, a PC and a mobile device, on your for your customers without having to have any extended share call appearance multi-device setup. So it's a nice, neat, clean setup for a very simplistic telephony solution. And then the BroadWorks will be controlling all of your inbound routing, so Hunt Group membership, call queue membership, all of that sort of thing can be set up in the normal way, but calls will roll through and be answered within your Teams environment. So nice and simple. Doesn't get a lot too complicated. We'll talk a little bit about the licensing when we get back out of there. But I will just touch on this, partly because one of our resellers has just won a 400-seat council deal on the basis that although they are Teams users and this was very interesting to them, the actual accelerated Microsoft cost for the call licenses that were required, the common phone service and or the E5 license numbers, it became relevant that they weren't actually as deeper Teams users as that might benefit. So there was this other option, which is soon to be released, and I do mean very soon, where the the WebEx calling app, which is available within the Microsoft environment, can be downloaded. And by dialing on this dial pad or cutting and pasting into this dial pad, it will simply bring up your UC1 Trio soft phone. So at the present time, I've got my UC1 Trio here. I use a fully fledged UC1 Trio, so I've got all of this presence and chat and all that sort of thing going on. You would only need to actually deploy the very simplest UC1 product, the soft phone only, and then that would become the slave to this dial pad or a standalone dial pad on its own. But it makes the assumption that if anybody's going to do any chat or anything, they're going to do it in the Teams environment. So as we look at the options that you can deliver to your customers, you've got these two options coming through. Let me just tell the computer how to behave itself. You've got calls to Teams, a simple embedded PC and mobile dial pad application that allows you to remain in the Teams windows and interact. And you've got this coming option from UC1 from the Cisco WebEx environment to link in a different way. If I just bring up the pricing structure to give you an idea of why that balance and those choices are important. Calls to Teams as a wholesale product to you on a 30-day basis is £2.52, but it does require the Microsoft license to be in place behind it. So the common phone license, I think, is around £6. The E5 depends on the deal that you've struck with your enterprise level acquisition of sort of Teams licensing anyway. But to many, that's quite a stretch in terms of the cost and return that they get from it, the return on investment that they get from it. So it is worth having those secondary conversations about exactly what the value of the tight integration is. The smart user that goes along with this, the minimum extension requirement, it's probably worth noting that at the moment, you would be able to have 12 months free of that. So if you are approaching a Microsoft Teams organization, you could be putting their extensions into the Microsoft Teams environment for as little as $252 for the first 12 months if the customer factors their Microsoft licensing in to their IT department, not your sale. But again, as we've said, or as I've said earlier in the presentation, you're able to add all the different elements and applications that you want to on the back of this and have your Teams solution going through with all the other services, call center, et cetera, et cetera. Just rocking back, however, if we take the 252 for calls to Teams out, it is an embedded integration on the UC1 Trio. So you're looking at deploying a smart user with UC1 Trio, again, smart user free for 12 months. The Trio then sits as a soft phone in its own right, but there is no £6 Microsoft common phone license integration required on that. So if the customer can't justify the full slickness of integrating that dial pad, then perhaps that's the better option, and certainly was in a deal one of the guys was calling us about the other day. So that's the core of the product. It's not big, it's not complicated, it's just neat. It fits with the buying view or the mindset of a lot of businesses, and certainly will enable you to get into a conversation with customers out there simply by using the are you an adopter of Teams first step. I don't know if we've got any questions. I think we haven't at the present time, which is very neat. So I'm going to let you guys go. Do please reach out to us. The guys in the channel management team would be delighted to talk to you. This is one product option that allows you to create an appropriate user experience. So a feature appropriate user service is what's going to get us the best margin deal and deliver the customer the best value for money. So hopefully you'll join us and add this to the portfolio that you can take out to win business. Have a great afternoon and take care.